Hi there. I must preface this little talk on the secret of Gnosticism, which sounds highly pretentious, almost clickbaity, really. I'm sorry about that, but I just couldn't resist it. I felt really excited about this talk in today in the morning. But anyway, I must preface this video by saying that I am very, very depressed. And I don't know whether Gnosticism is the kind of religion to deal with depression. I suspected it is, but we'll have a look, see if it is in this video. You know, I have no friends, I have no money, I've got a mad daughter who's draining all my money away, and I have a partner who's emotionally drained as a result of dealing with insanity for 2 decades now. So we're, pretty much at the end of our tethers, really, at the end of the line almost. And so we're going to come on to this. This is the background for this video, really. And this video is about patience. Okay, I call it the secret of Gnosticism. I think the secret of Gnosticism is twofold: patience and being. I want to first talk about patience, and then I'll come on to being later. Patience. You have to have patience with something, and patience is a virtue. That means it's a skill that you have to cultivate. It's a strength that you have to cultivate. You have to cultivate the patience muscles, if you like, in your mind. And that's, I suppose, is the challenge of patience. You certainly have to have patience with those with whom you're in relationship. That includes obviously loved ones, and I think that forgiveness and patience are the cornerstone of all relationships, really, family relationships and relationships with spouses, partners. But also nowadays, you also have to have a patient relationship with technology and social media. I think because social media and technology have become so intimately involved with the lives of many, many people that you have to have patience with the people with whom you have a relationship on in social media and technology generally. You talk about computer rage. Even if you're on mobile devices, you have to have patience. Patience with the actual operating system itself and the actual technology itself, which I find very difficult. I get very, very rageful dealing with computers and technology and Skype and social media, and I don't have much sight, so I get pretty angry and frustrated that I can't see any of the GUIs, that's the graphical user interfaces that basically assail our senses every day. All different GUIs, and they all demand a different amount, a different degree of patience in order to operate them. Which, of course, I know is based on desire. You want to be on social media. You want to have a relationship with technology. You want a relationship with family and spouses. I mean, if you never got married and never had a family, I suppose you wouldn't have to have patience then, would you? Really, but one does, and the patience is required there. So moving on down here, you have to have patience with the forces that cause change. And I got here all is impermanent, which is a Buddhist formula, mystical formula, which is incredibly true. My mum actually, one thing my mum always said, and her father said to her, is that wait and see policy. It's always the best thing, because if everything is impermanent, then a situation that you think is going to be around forever is going to change. It might change next week, it might change next year, or it might change tomorrow. You never can tell. And when we look at the forces of the universe, we look at Mercury, sulfur, and salt. The Mercury is the initiator of change, and sulfur is the dynamic engine of change, and salt is the resistance to change, which is also part of the algorithm of change, the adversarial part of the algorithm, if you like. And you're always going to these forces act on each other and with each other to create change. And change is like death and taxes, is something that you can count on, really. So if you're feeling depressed about a situation that you're currently experiencing, then wait and see. Wait and see. Be patient because things change. So that's one thing. The other thing is that be patient with humanity. 60% of people are going to be doing the best they can with what they have, the tools that they have. And I think that's true because, Mercury is creative energy, sulfur is preserving energy, or maybe it's the other way around, I'm never quite sure. And salt is destructive energy, inertia energy. So 30% of people are not using the tools, are screwing up basically, and are heading headlong into destructive energies, self-destructive energies, etc., destructive of the people and of the planet. But 60% of people are in fact trying to use the tools that they've got to the best of their ability. But of course, it may not be adequate, and in fact, good intentions could come to nothing, and they could be doing more harm by doing the best they can with the tools they have. But that's so they actually Mercury and sulfur descend into salt. But I think at least you can be patient with humanity, because overall, from salt can arise Mercury and sulfur. I mean, these elements, they revolve in a sort of triangle, and they kind of, like, as I say, they're always melting into each other in a very complex sort of dance of energy. So be patient. Again, wait and see what humanity does next, basically. 60% of it could be good, 30% of it could be obviously bad. But realize, of course, that the good can become the bad, and the bad can become the good. However you define good and bad, of course, which is another video, isn't it? Really. So the last thing is be patient. Be patient with your own self. Talk about philia, the ancient Greek word for love, self-compassion, self-love. But it also extends to self-deification, and this comprises of three elements. It's the belief that you and you alone are the best and only person that can best deal with your own problems. And I think that's a very, very vital thing to understand. You can call it self-deification or selfishness or mystical or esoteric selfishness or whatever you want to call it. But that is the result. It's a feeling that you are the best. You're the best person. Okay, you're the best person, and you're the only person because you are the best person. It's a very positive statement. And the other thing is, it's not so bad. Situations that you're in may not be as bad as you think they are. And a solution may be possible, but you're just unable to see it yet. But when you do see it and you act, you may be able to get out of a bad situation that you're in now. So things may not be so bad, because after all, you haven't committed suicide. Okay, you're still here. So somewhere deep inside you, that things are not so bad as they might seem, or even though they might actually appear to be appalling on one level. On another level, nothing is as bad as it seems. Otherwise, you would either be dead, either committed suicide, or you would actually be dead. Someone's shot you, or you died of some disease or whatever, or you've actually died of cancer. Whilst there's life, there's hope. But also, of course, as we understand, hope itself can be a burden, because it hope that keeps you coming back to the table, and the bank always wins, so you keep on getting you keep on losing your money at the table, at the lottery table, or the gaming table, and it's hope that keeps you going back there. So hope is not always a wonderful thing. Also, the realization that no one is going to rescue you. There may be gods and angels and holy grails and I don't know what out there, and other people, but they can't rescue you. No one's going to come and actually with a white knight in shining armor. It's not going to happen. On the other hand, it's also true that once you open yourself up to assistance, once you go one step towards those forces that could give you assistance, they will come two steps towards you, two steps. So for every one step that you make towards them, they will come two steps towards you. And that's apparently an occult law or a law of nature, a law of even the realms, the demiurge. So that the Holy Spirit does operate in the realms of the demiurge and does come to your assistance, provided you're A, open to that assistance, and B, that you make some effort to improve things for yourself, understanding that you are the best and the only person that can initiate change. Okay, but you're also waiting for change to happen. So there's a kind of energy dance between being patient with yourself and being patient with the world. There's a relationship there which is borne out by this kind of thing I've drawn here between the two patiences, two types of patience. That there's a relationship between patience with the forces of change and patience with yourself, I suppose. Patience with humanity and patience with family, for example. There's a relationship between these two types of patience as well. And then finally, when this is very important, is the patience for salvation from the Lord. The kingdom of the Lord is at hand. Jesus is coming back on a cloud, and you know not the hour or the day. Okay, so that will cause you to be patient. There is salvation, but it depends on what you mean by salvation. And I think that salvation doesn't necessarily come from doing. So I don't think there's things that you can do like magic rituals and throwing salt over your left shoulder or rubbing the lucky Buddha or something. So I think doing is not particularly helpful, really, or at least an unbalanced approach to doing. It's not all doing. Some of it is in being, okay? And this is where being comes in. You have to you have to work towards a state of beingness, which comes through, and that creates a state of patience in your brain, that you're waiting for salvation, and you're also cultivating patience to all these other areas of life, to your family and to humanity and to the forces of change in the realms of the demiurge, and towards creatures or beings that might help you, that might assist you. So you're going towards a state of being, and by that I don't necessarily mean meditation, because meditation is such it's simple and yet it's complex. It's challenging and yet it's not challenging. What I mean to say is just ordinary spontaneous introspection, and cultivating literally a vision or visualization of the Holy Grail, which will give you comfort and strength and power. So that you're going towards being, which is basically to still your mind as well, and to introspect. As I've already discussed before, you contemplate the sorrow of the universe and the sorrow of the soul imprisoned in this evil matter, and then you introspect and you think about the Holy Grail and you think about the Holy Spirit and about the Christ, and the salvation of Christ is at hand. Okay, which basically means that it's here, and that here and now you can experience salvation absolutely now, by going into this state of being, and state of consciousness of salvation, the sit sat, and then the ananda is the experience of the bliss of salvation, which is now, basically in the here and now. So the salvation of the Lord is at hand. So in a way, you don't even have to be patient, because it's right here. But I suppose patience for the salvation of the Lord, there is a certain amount of faith comes into it, because I think there is a patience. I think that the white hand will descend and pluck us out of this prison, of this evil world of the demiurge. I really think that. But again, we have to cultivate patience, and we also have to cultivate this beingness, which is the essence of patience. So I think this patience and beingness is really the secret of gnosis. It's the secret of the Gnostic way of life, and perhaps is the secret of of cultivating a little bit more happiness for yourself within the realms of the demiurge. Because when you are depressed, it does actually help to say, well, don't expect anything more from the realms of the demiurge. This is life in the demiurge. This is life in this prison that is imprisoning my soul. And really, how can I expect any more? How can I expect any better from the realms of the demiurge, other than what I am experiencing, which could be depression, sorrow, grief, loss, regret, all these kind of things that young people don't have, but when you get older, you begin to experience quite heavily, actually. Well, at least that's my experience anyway. So I don't know whether this will help me get over my depression. I suppose it might help a little bit. And I'll have to sort of wait again, be patient with the process of going towards being, which might liberate me from my current feelings of depression and anxiety and stress. We'll have to wait and see, won't we?